last but not least, in our webinar series about our master's programs, we are gathered here today to present our programs within the conservation field. And what you see here on this picture is actually a pretty appropriate picture for today, what the weather looks like in Gothenburg today. Not as snowy, but it's really pretty right now. My name is Martina. I'm an education officer here at the Faculty of Science, and I work with our international programs. Before we get this started, I just want to point your attention to that the presentation and webinar is being recorded. You are not visible for the audience, and you are welcome to ask your questions in the Q&A box here below. But we will not answer questions during the webinar. So we will do our presentations first and then answer questions at the end. We will have enough times to take your questions. And today is, like I mentioned, about our master's programs. There's 2 of them. I am joined by my colleagues from the Department of Conservation that will talk about those. And we are also joined by 2 student ambassadors who will talk about their studies and how to find housing in Gothenburg and a little bit about the study system in Sweden, for example. And then we round up with a Q&A session at the end, like I said. And here you actually see part of our building that we are moving into next autumn. So everybody that's coming to us next autumn will be moving in a new building that's called Natrium. I don't know if you can see it in the bottom here, but we will collect 5 of our 7 departments at the faculty at this building. So we're really excited about that. And with that, I would like to give the word to Bosse to talk about our master's studies.
Thank you, Martina. You see here that the Department of Conservation is actually situated in 2 different geographical locations, although the master's programs that we will present for you today are mostly performed within Gothenburg, the Gothenburg facilities. And you see an aerial the bottom left corner of the new building, and on the top left corner you have a photo of our facility, or part of our facility, in Mariestad. So it's roughly 20 or 200 kilometers between Gothenburg and Mariestad. And one of the student ambassadors, Emma, has her bachelor from Mariestad. So we have roughly half the department in Mariestad and half the department in Gothenburg. And we think it's interesting to also be a bit outside the urban area of Gothenburg. I think we should change slide. Yes. So we have 2 programs, 2 master programs in conservation, and I took a short look on the attendees to see if I could understand roughly where you are from, and it's looking at the names only indicates that you represent a broad diversity of different cultural areas and language areas and so on. And I know from my own experience that the concept of conservation is not absolutely fundamentally understood in the same way globally. So to start with, we are working with cultural objects, cultural remains, objects and landscapes that are in some way affected by human activity. So we are not primarily doing nature conservation, so we are focusing on the cultural area. And then conservation, the concept of conservation as such, is something that we have use the what we could call sometimes the Euro-English definition of made by Sir Bernard Fielden in 1986. He said that conservation may be defined as the dynamic management of change in order to reduce the rate of decay. So that is in principle what we are doing by training people, taking care of cultural objects, buildings, built environments, gardens, and landscapes that has historical properties and values that we think are worthwhile giving a further life in the future. So the program I will present is the Master's Program in Conservation, and that is our what we call the broad program. So the people, the students that enters this program could come from our bachelor program, specifically the Integrated Conservation of Built Environment, or the Garden and Landscape Management program. But we also take in students that has an architectural background, an engineering background, a background in studies in history or archaeology or cultural geography. So it's a broad meeting of people with diverse backgrounds in regards to subjects and also to language and culture. So it's always interesting to see how that might turn out into synergetic effects that actually enhance the studying in the program. We also have the idea, due to this broad intake, we also have the idea that each student should be able to get their own specific in-depth profile. So one part in the beginning we put some focus on is how you define your studies in the coming 2 years in order to get the in-depth orientation you think you really would like to get through these master studies. We are in our program, we try to also give the possibility, and we will see that a little bit in the next slide, I think, but giving the students possibilities to create individual courses that could be in the shape of internships, but not neutral internships, but internships with a specific purpose, a specific objective, a question, where we collaborate with external parties. So we have a number of mandatory courses that are studied during the first year. So conservation, sustainable development, integrated conservation, and research methods in conservation. Those 3 courses are mandatory for all students. And then depending on what kind of educational background you have with you, you have to study also theory and history of conservation. If you have a degree in anything to do with preservation, conservation, restoration, you normally would have some kind of course addressing the theory and history of conservation. So in that case, you don't need to study that course. We also have elective courses during the first year: sustainable management of cultural landscapes, contemporary theoretical discussions in conservation, and a set of individual courses. So these courses tries to give partly a focus on understanding the broad area of heritage preservation conservation, but also giving a certain focus on the landscape and the built environment, which is perhaps the general intention, we could say, with this program: the broad perspective of conservation and preservation, but also a certain focus on buildings and built environments. The second year, we have the possibility to use the fall semester for different options for you as students. So we have existing courses that we run on yearly basis. We have the digital courses, we call them, digital technologies for heritage conservation and advanced digital tools for heritage conservation. Those 2 courses comprises half the semester, if you choose to study them, and they contain new digital technologies like digital photogrammetry, 3D scanning, and how to reconstruct 3D modeling in a digital environment. We also have a course on industrial heritage, use and reuse, And of course, we could organize individual courses, or you could study courses at other departments at the university or other universities in Sweden or other universities, for instance, within the European Union area. We could organize Erasmus exchange, but there's also possibility to study further away in the world. We also I think we would say a good network with partners throughout Europe for doing different things, but also, which might be of interest for you, I had a meeting earlier today regarding a cooperation we are establishing with Ethiopia, the Voldia University in Ethiopia, where there will be possibilities for student exchange for specifically master students in the second year to go to Ethiopia. Hopefully, the situation in Ethiopia has calmed down and there's a more secure place to go to. Last semester, second year, of course, focusing on the master thesis, 30 credits. And I know that in some countries, 30 credits is very long. I know countries in Europe that have a 10 credit master thesis combined with master work. But our master thesis is 30 credits, one semester of work where you get supervision all the time. And the thesis is then defended in a public seminar where you also, as a student, act as a critical reader for your colleagues' master thesis. So this is in principle how the broad master's program in conservation is organized. To summarize, provides you with a lot of opportunities for getting your own in-depth orientation, while at the same time providing you with important overview of this complex area of conservation preservation in a societal context, focusing on how to bring the qualities and properties of our present society into a sustainable future. So with that, I think we could leave the word to Lotta and our other master's program. You are muted.
Yeah, while some countries have more than one program for conservation of cultural heritage objects, the one at the University of Gothenburg is the only one we have in Sweden. To enter the program, the requirements are that you have approved bachelor's degree in conservation of heritage objects, 180 credits from Sweden or abroad. In Sweden, the bachelor program has a general approach, teaching chemistry, theory of conservation, conservation of inorganic and organic materials, preventive conservation, and so forth, while the specialization is on the master's level. In 2023, the next specialization will be conservation of textiles, and it will be followed by conservation of archaeological materials in 2024, and so on. And planning ahead, it allows for each and every specialization program also to invite some of the most predominant lecturers and teachers with a state-of-art knowledge in their own specific field. Sweden is a full member of the European Network for Conservation, Restoration, Education on CORE, and we follow its requirements. And the Department of Conservation has several collaboration projects with other institutions in Sweden and abroad, with the museums, private conservation companies, or public agencies. So what's in it for you? If you are looking for an education with the dedicated and devoted lecturers and teachers who will make the utmost for you to succeed, who promotes critical thinking and personal development, it is an education for you. In Sweden, there are good opportunities for work for most of the material specializations at museums or private businesses. As you can see here, there are a wide range of different courses. They are more specific, the one that Bosse was presenting for you, And some of these courses are general, like the first one, documentation of cultural heritage, or the third one, material science for conservation. They reoccur every year, but the focus will be on the chosen specialization of that year's program. I will not go into detail with each of the courses. There are curriculums for each course on our website, but as you can see, there are also 2 blocks of specialization. And for next year, the conservation of textile 1 and conservation of textile 2. And I don't think you can read much about these specialization yet on the website, so I will go a little bit more in depth with those. In the conservation of textile 1, it will include textile chemistry and physical, chemical, and biological deterioration and degradation factors of textiles, dyeing of support fabrics, and chemistry of dyes and washing, advanced textile technique analysis, packing, handling, mounting, as well as conservation methods for textiles will be taught. Aging and degradation of other materials used in the production of textiles and associated objects will be studied, such as leather, paint, and metals. And in the second conservation of textile 2, the course will give the students a deeper knowledge in the conservation of archaeological textiles, painted silk banners, dresses, and tapestries. During the second year, it is possible to either write a 60-credit master thesis, that is a full year, or you can split it in 2 to have internship 1 semester and write a master thesis 1 semester, and the latter, to do both, is the most common. And internships can be made in Sweden or abroad. In Europe, it's possible to apply for Erasmus internship grants for the internships. Evaluations and grading of the courses varies from course to course, but active participation in seminars and workshops, oral presentations, written individual assignments, and of course the master thesis are parts of the assessments of the students. Yeah, I think that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Then we just have put the contact details of the program coordinators here for you. So everybody who's attending today and has registered will get the information sent to them afterwards. So here you have everything. We also want to mention that Paula is also joining us today in the Q&A session. She's the study counselor for both programs and will be most likely your first point of contact if you have any questions. And just a little bit about the application process. So if you're an international student applying to one of these masters, you have to go through a page that's called universityadmissions.se that has specific information for your home country and what kind of requirements you have, what kind of documents you need to send. The application is open already, and the deadline is January 16th. We really urge international applicants to apply in this first admission round. There is a second admission round, but for international applicants, it is not recommended because you will have a hard time getting everything ready before you move to Sweden, especially the housing situation. You should know that you're actually coming here. If you apply by January, you will have your admission results by April and can start the whole process of getting ready for the move. So that's just something that I would like to highlight. Please, if you're an international student, apply by January 16th. And now it's time for our students to take over and talk about their experience. So I will let Emma jump in here and talk about her studies, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emma, and I'm doing my master's in the broader program, so the Master in Conservation. As Bosse mentioned, I come from this faculty before. I did my bachelor's in the same faculty, and I did it in cultural heritage preservation of gardens and landscape environments. What I really like about the cultural heritage studies is that I get to develop and improve my interests in biology and botany, as well as history and the traditional craft. And in Sweden, this is only done at the University of Gothenburg, so I'm very happy to have ended up here. And I really like our faculty. It's a very small department. It's very can't pronounce it, whatever. And we are very small classes, so we get to spend a lot of time with our teachers and developing both our practical skills and our theoretical skills. Can we do the next slide? Okay, so the master is in Gothenburg. And what I like best about Gothenburg is that, in contrast to many other universities, it's not like a campus-based university. You get to meet a lot of people who aren't students. You get to live in a big city at the same time, which is nice. But we are more than 60,000 students. And as you can see, the trams are it's a cultural heritage of Gothenburg, and they're modern as well. And as I said, it is a big city. It's a smaller big city than many of our other European larger cities, but it really combines the city life and the university. Things to do, you can go to concerts, and there's a lot of diversity in Gothenburg, so you get to see artists from all over the world, or like art artists as well, not just performance artists. So like authors and painters and everyone come to Gothenburg. It's also close to nature, as everything is in Sweden, and Sweden overall has a lot of nature to offer if you like hiking or going on trips, basically. When you study in Sweden, we usually do one or at most two courses at the same time. They are always 7.5 or 15 credits. So 7.5 is 5 weeks, and then 15 credits is 10 weeks. And so in one semester, you would do 30 credits. If you do it full time, you can also do it at half time, and then you only do 15 credits per term. The master's programs is 2 years, so that would be 120 credits and 4 semesters. Our grades are either failed, passed, or passed with distinction. And depending on what program you take, we do a lot of essays and presentations and seminars. We do workshops or quizzes, and there's also lab reports, literary reviews, and final exams. You always have the opportunity to retake a failed exam, so the pressure is not super high unless you rake up a lot of tests to retake. But again, our teachers are very accommodating and want to help everyone succeed. So don't be scared, is my advice.
Thank you, Emma. We're really happy to have you here, who's actually studying one of the programs. So stick around and ask Emma in the Q&A part of this webinar later. We will move on to Ivan, who will talk a little bit about himself, and then about housing and what you can expect when you get here.
Thank you, Martina. So hello, everyone. My name is Ivan, And I'm an international student from Croatia doing my master's here, my master's program in environmental sciences. So not exactly conservation. Well, okay, it might be related to conservation but from a scientific standpoint. And yeah, so why did I choose Sweden? I was just when I was finishing my bachelor's in the University of Zagreb back home in Croatia, I realized that I wanted to also study abroad, but that my university was not really that maybe well developed, or didn't have so many opportunities for like environmental science students for their masters. And that's where I found the University of Gothenburg, which is why I went here, because of the so many things that you can do here once you finish your master's here in environmental sciences, but also just any course in natural science division, like departments. And the I was really surprised when I started studying here how much of a friendly atmosphere and environment you have between other international colleagues and your teachers or professors, which is why I'm just enjoying my second year right now. Yes, I'm on my second year of my master's, and soon I'll be doing my thesis. And of course, another major plus for studying in Sweden, and particularly in Gothenburg, is the absolutely beautiful scenery and outside of Gothenburg, which you can visit. So yeah. So there is a thing, of course, if you are a international student outside of the European Union, you need a residence permit. There are 3 types, and the one for you, which you need, if you are one, you need a student residence permit. If you are a European Union citizen, you do not need to apply. You already have the right for free movement and residence. But however, for international students who are outside, they need to pay tuition fees, and they also have to have the right for scholarships, which you can see, like you can later check on these websites. But there are, I think, around 3 offers, I think, for scholarships. I'm not sure exactly, since I am from the European Union, so I did not have to. Well, I don't have the right for scholarships at this moment. So we can continue then further. Now, if you are even a little bit like considering to study in Gothenburg, I advise you right now, if you haven't already, to register an account on SGS, or Stiftelsen Studentbostäder, which is a housing company which is directly like working with the University of Gothenburg. Because the University of Gothenburg itself does not have does not offer like housing or campuses like other universities perhaps, but that's why SGS comes in. And Erasmus students usually do not have to worry about this. If they are studying for 1 semester, they 90% or so of as Erasmus students will be guaranteed a housing or a dorm from SGS. However, if you are planning to study longer, so if you plan on taking a master's program like me, then you need to look for housing way further before you actually get here. It is a bit difficult, but it's, of course, it's not impossible. So, but I advise you, you can do it even now while you haven't even sent your papers for the university on university admissions. So you don't need to be specifically admitted to the University of Gothenburg, because so instead you can do it now. Just open an account and you will start collecting points. This is the system of, let's say, finding housing in Sweden. on most websites for housing, you have points, and every day you get 1 point. So I think I had to wait for about less than a year or so to be in this apartment, to be in this SGS apartment, which was around maybe 300 or 320 points. So, but you can get it like sooner than that. Of course, you can choose these options, sista minuten, which is last minute, or direct. And you can also search on other housing websites, which I also did by registering on Blocket or Casa. And one more thing that I didn't really investigate before I actually arrived in Gothenburg, there are a lot of Facebook groups for student housing as well. And if you are also lucky, there might be Facebook groups for students from your own country, or like just Facebook groups with people from your own country who also offer housing. For example, like there was, I think, a Croatian community or so that was also offering housing, but I already had an apartment, so yeah, it wasn't really important for me. One thing though, I would give you a tip on, if you are not applying through SGS or other websites, is to not pay anything in advance. So that is, sometimes it can happen. It's not often, but it can happen as a scam. So just be sure that if you find a housing offer, if you get one, do not pay anything in advance before you see the apartment. Yeah, so if you are already thinking about it, just go to sgs.se, open an account. It doesn't have to be activated. You'll start collecting points. Trust me, it will save you, because I started, I think I opened my account somewhere in July, because I didn't know that you could open an account before you got admitted to the University of Gothenburg. And if I knew, I would have opened it in January when I started thinking about it. And yeah, I would probably have an SGS apartment even sooner. So, and one more thing that you might, there's a tip, I think, if you are a member of a Göta Student Corps or Gothenburg Student Union, you can also get 3 months extra waiting time in queue for SGS, student apartments. Yeah. I think that's it. I think that's all I wanted to say for the housing situation right now. Yeah. As for when you have been admitted to the university, and once you arrive here, we also have some special situations and events to welcome our new students at the university. We did have welcome days and pickup services for students before the semester started back in August and in September, I think, where you had the chance to opt in to be picked up at the airport. And as for other activities, we had, in fact, a welcome day somewhere around September, I think, or was it late August? We had a welcome day, we had a welcome panel where we invited all of the international students from the Faculty of Science. And furthermore, we had webinar, I think we had a webinar somewhere, in November, where we hosted a small little webinar for surviving the winter in Sweden, as sometimes it can get hard with the cold or the darkness, but nothing really to be so worried about. And we will be planning, I think, a few events later this, I think in about a week or so. There will be a St. Lucia event for the international students. But all in all, we always have something in store for our international students so that they feel connected with the faculty and that they, have a sense of home, so to speak. Yeah. And sometimes we have also collaborative events. with Unimeet Gothenburg and the ESN, or Erasmus Student Network. And mostly it's around the welcome days or some special events. So yeah. Thank
you, Ivan. I also, just before I open up the Q&A here, I want to mention that Ivan, for example, is a member of one of our international student ambassador group that is quite active in organizing events, and yeah, so you will be taken care of. I see that I'll stop sharing the screen for now. I see that we have a couple of questions in the Q&A box already, so I will just get to answering that. We have a question about the Cultural Heritage Objects Master. Will the digital techniques that are covered by the 2 courses of the more general masters also be taught in the Cultural Heritage Objects Masters?
That should we try to answer that one? That is something that we are discussing, and the difference between the master's programs is that the objects conservation program is more tight in regards to existing courses. So there is, they will not be given in full in the objects conservation program. But the idea is that if you enter that program, you could make a choice if you want to do those courses, or if you want to follow the ordinary setup of courses. Or you could, these 2 courses, the digital courses, are also given as freestanding courses. So one could study them without being enrolled in either of the programs. And quite a lot of students in those courses are also coming from other parts of the university or the world. So, and well, yeah, so perhaps that was answering it.
I think so. A more general question, maybe: how big are the groups admitted to the master's programs? Do you have an
yeah, to the broader program, we try to at least accept 20, depending on, and not all of them will, show up by the start. So normally I would say perhaps around 10 in the broader program. Eventually, in the objects of conservation, there is a more limited space, but they aim for 15, but it's depending on the size of laboratories and studios that you cannot have too many students in those facilities.
Thank you. I would like to read out one of the questions that was already answered in the Q&A box, but I'm not sure if everybody can see that. So there was a question about what's the difference between the 2 faculties, Gothenburg and Mariestad, and Bosse, you answered that, but basically in Mariestad you don't have any bachelors. Other way.
No, the other way. We have in total at the department, we have 4 different bachelor programs, and you could say that in Mariestad there is a general focus on craft science. Craft science focusing on the needs of the heritage sector, and the heritage sector then works with buildings, built environments, gardens and landscapes. So the needs of that sector for craft skills in order to get good quality, long sustainability outcomes of restoration activities needs an improved understanding of craft as a science and as a skill. So that is the general focus in Mariestad. So we have Bachelor of Science in Building Crafts and Bachelor of Science in Crafts in Garden and Landscape Preservation. And then we have also in Mariestad something we call the Craft Laboratory. And that was set up roughly 12 years ago as a joint activity between the department and Natural Heritage Board, the Swedish Church, the Natural Property Board, the Swedish Local History Association, etc., where there is a general interest from the more public bodies that they want to have an improved development of craft methods and craft routines that they as public bodies could get into formal restoration processes. So that laboratory has as its objective to develop craft science for the benefit of the heritage sector. To come into those bachelor programs, because I think I saw a question about the program Emma has studied. It is a bachelor program, it runs in Mariestad and it's in Swedish. So in the Swedish university system, bachelor programs are normally run in Swedish, while master's program we could run in English. So if you are interested in garden crafts and landscape craft, I guess you have to study some Swedish first. Unfortunately,
yes. Yeah. Depending on where you're coming from, it might not be that hard to learn.
Yeah, well, that's relativistic, I think.
Yeah. Maybe to follow a bachelor's degree, it might take a while to learn proficient Swedish. But we had a question here specifically for Iwan talking about language. Maybe you can answer that directly.
Yes. So good thing is for me, there is absolutely no problem just talking to anyone outside of the university or outside of class, because everyone here in Sweden really loves to speak in English. Sometimes when I even try to speak Swedish, they can hear that my accent is a little bit off, and then they start just speaking English. So yeah, whenever they have a chance with foreigners, they would love to speak English. So in that regard, you don't have to worry about that. So
yeah.
And also, there are, I forgot to mention, there are also free language courses, like free Swedish language courses that you can take as a student of the University of Gothenburg. Yeah, there are online classes and there are live classes. I'm attending a live class, but actually, today at 6 p.m. I will have a online Zoom class with the other students of the University of Gothenburg. It's just going to be another lecture. Yeah. So.
Well, I agree. I'm originally from Germany, and it is in ways it's easy to learn Swedish, and in some ways it's hard because most people are very proficient in English, and it's not a problem to get around. Maybe one more question for the students. What's the Gothenburg Student Union about? Is the union organizing these events that we talked about? Yeah, Emma, can you say something about the student union? Maybe it's a little bit different being a Swedish student in an international program, but what's your experience with the union?
Well, the union is on many levels. We have like an overarching union, which is the Göta Studentkår, which gives you a lot of of sales price on maybe like going out. You can get like a student discount, that's the word, on beer, or going bowling for free, or you get a discount on like mobile phones and basically anything. They also offer like free breakfast once a month when the student loans are maybe out. So they do stuff like that. And then each faculty have their own union as well that creates events for the students in, for example, in the science department, and then there is also a union for the conservation. So we have our own union, and we sometimes meet as well, and maybe do craft science together, not craft science, craft nights together, or watch movies or stuff like that. So we exist for
Well, we could also say that in all boards where you make decisions on a central university level, on faculty level, on departmental level, and also in other collegial groups within the department, there is a mandatory rule that students should be represented. And that formal assignment of the representation from the student side is made by the student union. So it's not the lecturers or the professors or the teachers that point to students say you should be the representative, but it's the students' cooperation that brings on who will be their representative in the different boards and you know, places where decisions are made in the university.
Ivan, do you have anything to add about events organized by the student unions, or how did it work for you? I guess how when you got here, maybe you sometimes you don't even know who is organizing the events. You just go to the events.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, yeah, I do think they are organized, but the Yetta Student Corps has like several like divisions or like groups, I think, where you can join. For example, there is, I think, union for, I don't know, I think sports, or like also for what's it called? I think there's also something for, I don't know, like maybe mountain stuff, or like hiking and other activities. But all in all, I don't really get maybe that many like notifications perhaps from the Yetta Student Corps, but we do like get maybe a monthly email or something like that, like a newsletter where they mention like activities or events just to join or something like that. But first year it was a bit tricky because we had the pandemic, and like it was maybe a little bit empty with the events. But yeah, now it's a bit better. And also we have also started organizing events like student ambassadors. We're also planning on doing a lot of activities for the spring and summer semesters. Yeah, if you want to check out that more, we also have an Instagram page like Science GU, so where we also like just post our daily lives and like how we are doing as students. Yeah, but in all, the Yetta Student Corps like does events, but I'm not exactly like I don't know all of them. Like maybe if you join like a specific group or something, you would probably have more information about that. But yeah, I definitely recommend that, because also, oh yeah, right, when you join the Yetta Student Corps, you also get a like discount, or rather basically a student discount for public transport, which is very important here. Yeah, because, well, yeah, sometimes you can find housing that it's maybe 15 minutes away by tram or something, so it might be necessary. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. We'll jump to two questions that are admissions related. Somebody who's done a master's already in sustainable heritage from India and moved to Gothenburg, and is wondering if he or she has to apply again as an international student. Paula or Busse?
The internationality, I guess, is based on citizenship. or is it based on address? That's a good question. I'm not sure. We need to come back to that question, I think. But if you have a master's from Bartlett, that's pretty good, I think. So you shouldn't be shy of that. It's very competitive in an international context. So congratulations. I saw a question previous that the current application time is for the master's in textile, not for the one the year after in archaeology object. Is it? Yes, that's totally correct. It's textile, not archaeology, because that is in a year's time.
I can add maybe to the previous question about having to apply as an international student. I'm pretty sure that you will find the answer on university admissions if you check there. Otherwise, get in touch with one of us and we can find out for you.
There is also one question. What's the average age of the students in the objects master? Yeah, wow. That's a good question. Normally, I would say, Emma had to protest if she wants, but normally I would think that the average age of our students generally are a little bit older than perhaps in other subject areas, depending on the fact that our subject area is not the biggest, most well-known area. You who are taking part of this webinar have at least understood that this might be of interest for you, but the general student coming from upper secondary and choosing something perhaps do not immediately look for our subject area. So it normally takes some time to become aware of the fact that you could do studies in this area. And then, of course, when you apply for the masters, you have your bachelor behind you. So I don't know. I haven't really checked the average age presently, so I cannot be too precise. But we know from history, we could say that in general we have a little bit older, 1, 2, 3 years perhaps older average, while but compared with other areas.
Emma is nodding, so you agree.
Yes, I agree. I have always been the youngest, and I can tell you that I'm 23. So usually people are a few years older than me.
Yeah, I have that question about the cover letter or motivation letter. And that is part of the application process, because when you apply to our programs, you don't apply to our department. you apply through a system that assess you as eligible or not eligible. And our subject area is of the nature that the units in the central university system that should assess the eligibility of your background for starting our programs often are rather unsecure. So they send questions to us. These students have applied for this. Are they eligible to apply for it? So then we have to answer. And in that situation, if you have a not exactly precise background in conservation heritage studies, it might be good for you to add a motivation letter stating why do you want to study our subject area. Specifically, if you come from areas like civil engineering, civil engineering could be a lot of different tasks and things. So if you come from that area, it would really be beneficial if you have that kind of motivation letter. But if you come from, archaeology or history or architecture or cultural geography or whatever for the general master's program, well, then you don't automatically need a motivation letter. However, if you apply for the other master's program that in conservation of cultural heritage objects, then the requirement is that you have to have a bachelor's degree in conservation of cultural objects. So then that kind of simplifies. Then, of course, there could be an argument of interpreting what kind of degree you have, but still there is more rigorous requirements for that program compared with the broader program.
Mhm.
Yes, yeah, I can be contacted over mail.
Yeah, and a more specific question about if the Cultural Heritage Objects Master is also available part-time, and if that then would mean that you can stick to the specialization that you started with, or do you have to switch a specialization since you start new ones every year?
Yeah. Now Lotta isn't here, so she should really answer that. I know, as I said, I think that the other program has a much tighter course schedule, which makes it more difficult to perform the program in part-time studies. The broader program, on the other hand, yes, a lot of our students are doing the program in like half-time, part-time activity. So, but we have during the last 10 years seen an increasement in the number of students that actually do the program in full-time, like Emma, for instance. So there is in the broader program, there are opportunities for that, half-time, part-time, full-time. In the objects conservation program, I don't think so. They really would like you to follow it on full-time basis. And of course, as the questioner indicated, if you, for instance, which happens, if you get parental leave, or you get some kind of sickness, or you get other kind of private topics that actually hinders you from performing, and you need to continue 1 year later, obviously there is another specialization then, and that will be a problem we will deal with at that time. So we cannot really give you an explicit answer right now how to solve that.
Thank you. I will actually interrupt here, and it seems like this was our last question in the Q&A box anyways. For now, I just wanted to point your attention to, like Ivan mentioned, our Instagram that is entirely driven by students, not personnel at the university. So this really gives you a view of what a student life looks like here at the faculty. The ambassadors are from different departments here at the faculty. And as I mentioned in the beginning, everybody will get this presentation, and you have the contact information to the program coordinators, study counselor in the presentation. So don't be shy, reach out to them. Something I would like to mention, apart from the YouTube channel and the department's own Instagram account, is our virtual tour. This is like a 360 tour where you can actually go into the building and see what it looks like. I mentioned that we are moving to a new building next year, but there will be a tour available for that as well. As soon as we can go into the building and actually take the pictures. So here are some good links for you to get familiar with the university and our facilities. The webinar will be uploaded on our YouTube channel. And we have to wrap this up because we're out of time. So I would like to say thank you on behalf of all of us, and really hope to see you next year in Gothenburg. And the open questions, we can answer them afterwards, because everything will be saved on my computer. So if you didn't get an answer now, we will be able to answer it afterwards. thank you for all participating and for everybody listening to us. Hope to see you soon.
Yeah, great.
Bye.
All right. Bye.